Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature successful business leaders, authors, top law firms, green energy companies, and more. Today, we have another great episode in our IT Manager series with a technical data network specialist for the United States Marine Corps turned IT manager for HighLevel, Evan Jost. Evan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matt. It's good to be here.
Good to have you. Before we get too far in, a quick word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by cyberlynx.com. That's cyberlynx.com. Do you know if a hacker's in your system? Most people and most companies don't until it's too late and the hacker's already done damage. A hacker's job is to bypass your security, so companies need a way of knowing when someone's gotten past their security. That's where CyberLynx intrusion detection comes in. With our 24/7 Security Operations Center, we use a combination of AI and cybersecurity technicians to see when a hacker successfully bypassed your security. So if a bad guy gets past your security, we'll know right away and be able to kick them out. Find out more at cyberlynx.com. That's cyberlynx.com. And now back to our show. Evan, so for those who aren't familiar, can you tell us about HighLevel and your role there as the IT manager?
Certainly. I've been with the company for about 5 months now, and I've really become a true believer in it. It's actually really cool. When I first applied, it was just a job, and now that I've gotten to know the company, I've gotten to know the people. The product is really kind of a market-changing, universal, all-in-one platform for marketing, sales, advertising, CRM. It's your one-stop shop for advertising. Whether you're a small business owner, just advertising your own business, or if you are a marketing specialist and you do marketing for other businesses, it integrates all of your payment platforms, your phone platform, your social media, does all of your marketing, all of your sales, and tracks everything for you. It's pretty awesome, and the more I learn about it, the more I really like it. I want to get to know it more from an internal user side and familiarize myself with it, just because I figure if I'm working there and I like the product, I'd like to know it better.
There you go. I've got a buddy who runs an IT company out in San Diego, and they use HighLevel. And we had unfortunately we'd already kind of converted over to HubSpot years ago. And then he's like, "Oh, have you seen HighLevel?" I'm like, "Oh, now you tell me about HighLevel?" Like, because the pricing there's a drastic difference between HubSpot and HighLevel, and it's very similar products, but wildly different on pricing. Love HubSpot, not saying things wrong with them. Great product, but boy, the pricing difference is astronomical. So you guys put together a really great product at a wildly competitive price, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I look at, we just had our company retreat for the North America region in Las Vegas last month, and we had a whole day, at the Bellagio in one of the ballrooms out there. They had the projector screen up and everything, and they were talking about all of our numbers and everything, and what the company does and how many customers we have, and our retention rate and how many people convert from trial to a paid membership, and then find out that the paid memberships are insanely affordable. It's just unbelievable. It's crazy that people don't realize how much they can do with it, and then how much they can actually afford it. I heard it and I thought, oh, that seems like it's going to be really expensive. It's not.
Yeah, no, I mean, like feature for feature, it's very comparable to HubSpot, and price point on HubSpot is not cheap. When you've got, it doesn't really make sense to buy one of their segments, whether it's like CRM. Okay, great, but now you're missing out on the sales part, you're missing out on the marketing part, you're missing out on the website integration. So then you get everything, and now you're paying $1,800 a month for what I think HighLevel is somewhere around 2 or 4, something like that. It's a huge delta between the two. I'm like, oof. So once we got to that point, now that we're having this conversation, I'm like, you know what, we should really, why do we not take the time to really look at that? Because that is a penny saved is a penny earned, right?
Yeah. And when you've got accounts that start at I think $97, don't quote me on that, but like $97 a month for the starter. And I think the most common one is the $297 a month. And you
Wow.
can do most of it that. I think there's a few, another tier or two beyond that, but nothing crazy.
So, all right. Note to self, we're gonna circle back on this because I think that's worth doing. Again, love you, HubSpot, but still at the same time.
Business.
And let's see how it pans out. I mean, it's been a couple years since that's happened. Let's see. Okay, so you guys this is really interesting. So, a lot of IT managers aren't, when you think IT manager, you generally don't think for a kind of a SaaS platform like HighLevel. So how would you say that's different from your past experience as an IT manager, at say like an air, yeah, you've got airports, you got all kinds of stuff in your background. So how, what do you think? How's it different?
It's one thing because my prior employer I worked in aviation, and we had all physical infrastructure from coast to coast. And I think in my last 10 weeks with that previous company, I spent 8 weeks in different locations. Every week it was 2 or 3, 4 days between New York, Miami, Los Angeles, other regions within Texas, because based here in Dallas, and Scottsdale, Arizona, just all over the place every week, just working on physical stuff, whether it be security cameras, the fiber optic networks, replacing a switch, what have you, or even just full remodels. So far, Las Vegas is the only place I've traveled with HighLevel because we're entirely remote. So that's completely new to me.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier on one sense because I'm not managing a physical infrastructure. I don't have to worry about running fiber. Is it single mode? Is it multi-mode or Ethernet? Or how many cases of RJ45 tips and how many spools of cable do I need? Or finding a subcontractor to run that for me. Not a problem. The bigger problem I find now, we're actually is that HighLevel. We're global. We've got people in a lot of different continents. I think we have at least 3 different continents covered. Same amount of employees, roughly. It was interesting because my previous employer, I went from, I was there when the company was about 250 employees and helped them grow up to about 1,100. Now I'm joining HighLevel. They're just reaching 1,100 and growing even more. So I get to kind of keep the body count increasing at a stable rate, but the demand is entirely different. So now I'm working with people in opposite time zones in India and Philippines and, Mexico and Canada, which, minor time zone differences, but we got other people in other countries, and I'm 18-hour delays between each email. But with that, I'm now finding new problems with finding localized vendors, something I didn't have to worry about before.
Yeah.
Previously, I could just buy a laptop, configure it, ship it through FedEx, no big deal. Customs is a problem.
Yeah.
And I spent about a month doing a lot of Google Foo, and I found myself a really good global asset procurement vendor who manages all of our hardware, and we're in the process of onboarding them now, and I'm really excited about it because it's gonna make my life so much easier. But that was a pain that I didn't anticipate, that I never had to deal with before.
Yeah. And then, I mean, how do you even support that? I mean, right? I mean, that's when it's all over the place. I get the assets. That's a challenge, and I think that's a great solution. And actually, I'm kind of curious about that one. So, how's the provisioning work? Are you guys kind of like, are you Mac? Are you PC? Is it a split?
It's primarily a Mac-based environment, which, if you ask anybody who knows me, is horribly ironic, just because my previous company was all Windows based, and we had people that started complaining that they couldn't learn Windows, so they wanted a Mac. And I protested to the point that it almost cost me my job, because we were running an entirely Windows network computer or network system, and then they want Mac computers. And I'm like, okay, now we have to either fork over more cash for these integrations to make it work, or just all kinds of different problems, MDM management and all the images. And then I get here and it's all Mac, and now you have more people requesting Windows computers. And I'm excited for those Windows users, but I've had to set aside any kind of complaints about the iCloud or whatnot, and and just do it. And it's fine. It's good for me because I need to step out of my comfort zone more frequently and learn. But it's definitely a learning curve. As far as procuring them, though, we're finding that there's certain parts of the globe where they're not as readily available. You know, I'm having a heck of a time ordering MacBooks in the Philippines. It's taking me a month to order a dozen MacBooks because there's first you have the 18-hour delay between each email asking, do you have this in stock? 18 hours later, no, we don't. 18 hours later, what about this? And it just drags the whole thing out. And then you have the, purchase orders, the payment process, then the delivering through the vendor to the shipping. It's just been crazy. So it's going to get a lot easier now with this new vendor. So
That's cool. So how do they do that? Do they have, I'm kind of curious, do they have kind of space all over the planet, and they, and they've got stuff already there, and they've just kind of pre-positioned them? They've shipped it, they've gone through the customs issues, and it's there just kind of ahead of time, and then they can deliver it faster? Or what's
yeah, actually, I'm happy to name drop as long as I'm not like, burning any bridges for you or your
No, totally cool, dude. Nope, we're an
Workwise
open.
is the vendor. Now,
What was it again?
Workwise,
Workwise? Okay.
WIZE. Now, I'm sure there's probably people who are listening to this going, oh God, not that. But I'm sure there's probably people listening who are going, oh yeah, they're so awesome. And so far, to this extent, I believe they are fantastic. They're awesome because they actually have warehouses in all of the locations where we operate. And then they do kind of a min-max where if you pre-order a certain number to stock up to your maximum amount of the devices that you want. And then they have that in their warehouse already allocated for you and your company, ready to go, pre-loaded to your Apple Business Manager or whatever MDM system you're using. And then when you order, they integrate directly with your HR platform to pull the names and addresses of your employees. And then instead of there's two different ways you can set it up, where the IT manager orders the equipment and says ship it to that person, or you can create like a little shopping portal that the employee can go in, and they're allocated all of this hardware based on their job description and their needs. So they're offered, this computer, this keyboard, this mouse, this headset, and maybe you can even give them like a branded t-shirt or a mouse pad or whatever, desk furniture, chairs and stuff, So
Awesome.
the employee can go in and just say, well, I already have my own mouse, keyboard, monitor, so I only need the computer. Or other people can say, I need a computer and I need a mouse. So it gives them the power to order this equipment, and you pre-approve it and they get shipped it immediately and it's all configured for them. And then I, as the IT manager, just make sure that they have their logins created and everything, and that's it. So it's already in country, it's already in their region. Their shipping takes a couple of days. They use local couriers, and there's no dealing with customs because Workwise will manage the contracts with their local vendors to procure those assets, and then Workwise stores it for you and sets it up for you. So it makes my life so much easier.
Wait, no, you say they set it up for you. What does that entail?
They will help you build an image and make sure that it's preloaded, so you have all of the stuff you need on there, whether you need Chrome or Firefox and Zoom and Slack and whatever else. They'll help you build the image. They can preload the image. They make sure that you have whatever SSO authorizations you need on there to sign into it. Make sure it's preloaded into your MDM, or they can just ship it out brand new in box and put that entirely on the employee. It's very customizable to whatever I want, more or less.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So do you guys do, I mean, when you've got this global workforce, and I think a lot of people have gone from being very much a small location where as an IT manager, it was great. It was all, local. And then kind of after the pandemic, things really have really opened up in terms of remote work for most, I'd say most, companies that aren't like manufacturers. And so I think a lot of IT managers have gone from a very different world of managing kind of locally to now really having to dive in and get good at mobile device management, and having a system down to where when they send out that new laptop to somebody in, another part of the country or world, they can log in and everything starts, kind of downloading and installing. And so I think that those challenges, I think, are becoming more ubiquitous, now. and I don't think it was one. I think a lot of large enterprise was kind of there more for their own kind of simplicity. That with mobile device management, enterprise definitely was because you really needed it. But I think for the small, medium-sized businesses, this is a kind of a new area that where the IT managers have to get good with that pretty quickly and have that ironed out, because if you don't, you then spend a ton of time with every single employee. It's a headache. It's a problem. They're setting up their own Microsoft account to log in, and now you don't really have management. Then they got to go and do just a whole bunch of stuff. So how did you guys deal with that, or was that already in place when you got there?
Well, when I started there 5 months ago, I had a lot more hair, so this is all pretty new. Um, no, I'm kidding. That bad genetics, I've been dealing with that for years. No, I'm in the process of putting that whole piece together right now as well, because when the company started first in the US, they had an MSP managing the US entity. And then as the company started growing in India, they got a separate MSP to manage that entity. But the US MSP had them on Adigi for their MDM, and the India entity had them on Jamf for their MDM. And now I've had to go through and put together the case for which MDM we want to switch to. So now I get to work with switching 600 computers in India from Jamf to Adigi while I'm in Texas. So I've got both of the MSPs fortunately working together on that, and we're putting this all together, and it's a slow process, but it's not fun. And it's just I came in right at the right time when it's switching from startup mentality to large global company mentality. So
That's great.
previously we had to when somebody requested a copy of Microsoft Office on their computers, we're on MacBooks, we're using Google. So most people are comfortable with Google Sheets and Google Docs, but you say you got people in finance that want Excel, and I totally get it. Excel has more robust functions and whatnot. So cool, fine. We remote into their computer, and we didn't have a Microsoft tenant at the time, so we would just it was a once-off, like, oh, this is just gonna be one or two people. We just
Fine, just
pay
buy
the
it.
$300 for the office, but
Yep.
it has to connect to their personal account. So then when that person leaves, they get to take a year subscription to Microsoft Office with them, and then we have to backfill it with another one for another $300-ish.
Yep.
So now I've got to set up on a Microsoft tenant. So we're starting to purchase licenses through that, and that's also allowing us to use Intune as our MDM system for our Windows computers, because Jamf and Adigi both won't touch Windows.
Nope.
So if we want to push updates to our security endpoint and whatnot, we need something to do that for us. Can't rely on the individual to run their security updates. So, it's
Yep.
just it's getting interesting, and that means I'm doing a whole buttload of homework on Microsoft Intune and getting to know it better, because that's something that I want to do. If this is going to be my call, if it's my decision to use Intune, and my leadership is trusting me to make this call, I want to make sure that they're trusting me is well founded. And so I want to be the one that's actually doing it and not just outsourcing it to an MSP and hoping that they do it. I want to make sure that I know what's going on too.
Yep.
So I want to,
Yeah.
if I'm going to get fired, if it goes bad, I want to at least know that what I'm doing, to try and fix it if I have to.
That's funny. So I think a lot of people find themselves living in both those worlds, the Mac and the PC world, having to get good at Intune, having to get good at Adigi or Jamf or Mosley, one of them, or all of them, for some people. And so it's really interesting. And I think the thing I like about these conversations is I think all too often we think that these are just kind of the problems and the things that we're having to deal with, and it's kind of unique, but it's everywhere. It's in all these organizations. We're all kind of going through that, together. So I think that's helpful. That becomes now a kind of a universal skill that at that, that the IT manager stage and even the lower, the people coming up in IT, and they're like complaining that they used to have lots of guys who were all Windows. They were, pro Windows all the time, and Mac sucks. And then they get and we're like, well, sorry, we have too many clients on Mac. You're gonna have to get good with Mac. They get on the Mac. They're like, this is fucking awesome. How did I never use this before? I got my text messages here. Then they're like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have shat on Microsoft forever. I mean, it did feed you for all those years. And then, but in any event, I think having to live in those worlds now for IT people, yeah, you're gonna have to live comfortably with them. And I think Intune's a funny one because I think the one thing that gets me, it does so many things really, really well, but the kind of the delay of sending stuff out. So I think what I think would be interesting to hear from your perspective as you get kind of more into Intune and more PCs come on, is if you end up having to supplement Intune with your own kind of RMM internally, like a Synchro or something where you spend 125 or $150 an agent, like, whatever IT person who's using it, so that you can then push things out and manage things, a little faster because, you get that remote access, you get, better view of a lot of things. And the timeliness on the Intune is what's really interesting. You go to wipe something and it, I'll wipe it next time it checks in, or
Yeah.
whatever. And it's like 6 hours, 18 hours, 36 hours later. It's like, so not exactly the most timely, where's your RMM is. So I'll be interested. Well, I should ask you, is that something that you're finding now and have already kind of put in place, or a bridge you see coming in the future potentially?
I can't say because I'm still playing around with Intune right now, just trying to get it set up. But I know that at my previous employer, we had switched from AirWatch. We were using AirWatch for all of our iPads and cell phones and stuff. And then we switched to Intune so that we could start using it on our Windows computers as well. So we had the iPads and the Windows computers all in Intune together, and it was great. With AirWatch, I could hold an iPad in front of me and hit lock, and within about 30 to 60 seconds, it'd be locked and unlock it and whatnot. I could make it make noises. I could make it put profanity on the screen if I really felt like just, being problematic to somebody. But, with Intune, somebody loses their iPad, loses their laptop, they say, hey, I lost it. And I go, okay, well, why? And then I go and I lock it, and the laptop just kind of sits there for a little while, and eventually it locks. And I had one where somebody called in, and they thought they lost their iPad, and so I jump on Intune and I go to lock it, and then they call back the next day and they say, hey, never mind, I found it, it's good. But then the lock took place after they found it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm haven't gotten into that point yet where I'm going to have to figure out a solution to increase the reactiveness and responsiveness in Intune or something, a middle ground to make it better. But it's a bridge I'll jump off of when I get to it.
Love it. Well, let me ask you. So I think for those IT managers who are in that in a similar position to you, you've got 1,100 employees, you've got a couple of MSPs you're managing. Um, where when it comes to that, like, do you, with the MSP, do you have them doing kind of everything and you're more on the strategic and management side? And now you've got this, an MSP doing all of your kind of day-to-day IT stuff. Is that how you guys have gone about it?
No, actually, we're relying on them less and less. So we're looking at, you know, uh, trying to. I'm a big believer in training my people. I don't want my technicians to just like sit and do the same mundane thing over and over and over again. I want to help them grow their IT career as well and their skills and experiences. So instead of relying on the MSP to manage Adigy for us, I've got my techs going through the Adigy Academy on, learning, getting an Adigy certification so that we can help with the transition from Jamf to Adigy as well, but also be a little more self-sufficient, and ultimately at the end of the day, I want them to be able to put stuff on their resume. So if, I don't want any of my people to leave me, but I don't want them to be stuck either. I want them to grow and go on and do better. I always bring up my previous employer, but on my team there, I love my team, and I still keep in touch with them frequently. I have texted almost all of them in the last 48 hours, just because we still maintain that good relationship. But one of my guys, I taught him how to do all the MDM management for our iPads and iPhones. And a year later, he was interviewing at Zips Car Wash. And the primary difference between his resume and the other applicant's resume was that he had MDM management. He ended up getting the job, and
Nice.
you know, I tease him, I heckle him a little bit, may call him Judas and whatnot for leaving, but like I'm very happy for him. I want him to go on to bigger and better jobs and not be feel stuck somewhere, because the whole point of a job is to grow. It's to grow your income and supplement your life so that you can live a better life, lead a better life. And nobody wants to stay in an entry level position
Right.
and just be happy with that.
I think that is a very clear distinction, I think, between most veterans and just and civilians, those that were never in the military. I think you see that in the way that we see, our subordinates, right? The people, our teammates, our team, that's how we see it. It's not a matter of just another asset for the company. They're not just people, but that kind of the leadership that you experience in the military, it comes with you. It goes with you as you leave and get out in the civilian world. And the way you see people and the world is just different than other. I mean, heck, just the funny one of my favorites is just having been shot at keeps you from getting as people get so upset about Excel. Like, it's just a spreadsheet. Nobody's dying. I'm
Yeah.
not sure why you're so upset. It's not the end of the world. Control Z, whatever it is, undelete, find it in your trash, whatever it is. Literally nobody's dying. And
Mhm.
yet you're at 11 when you really should be closer to 2. Not that things aren't important, but again, nobody's dying. And I think
Mhm.
there's so many great takeaways from the military, like that, like those leadership things, how we treat, our fellow coworkers, our fellow teammates. I think it's just different. I
Yeah.
mean,
And you're right. I have like this visceral reaction whenever somebody sends an email or a trouble ticket that starts out with all capital letters and says urgent. Is it
yes.
though?
I
I
mean,
totally understand, like if you're locked out of your email, like it's like I'm urgent as stuck, which if you're locked out of your email, how are you emailing me anyways? But it's happened. Um, like it's urgent, I can't get on my Slack. Like, okay, well, can you call them? Can you email them? Can you smoke signals, carrier pigeon? Can you shout their name across the 17 cubicles to reach them? Or
that's right.
it's really urgent. How much is this actually going to have an impact on the whole company?
Mm-hmm.
Is is this one program bothering you? I had somebody actually tell me a long time ago that they had this urgent problem. Their computer crashed. They couldn't get back online. I said, well, what were you trying to access to? Well, use my Facebook. I'm like, okay, so it's not urgent. It's not urgent. And like at the last company, I had to lay out the way we categorize urgency is, does this impact the ability for a flight to depart on time? Does this impact the customer's experience? And can you improvise and work around the problem? If you can work around the problem, like the example I used to give best was, because I worked in aviation before this. If you're standing at the check-in desk helping customers check in for their flights, and there's somebody standing next to you taking their bags, and you get locked out of your account, can that guy just take places? You just switch? Because I know that those two roles are both do the exact same position. They just do different parts throughout the day. If you can switch and finish the job, it's not urgent. Still, send a trouble ticket. We'll get to it as soon as we can. But, you know, don't sound the horn of Gondor just because you can't log into your email. Like it's not that crucial. And people just will set off red buzzers and everything, freaking out because there's one little thing that just put a hiccup in their plan. It's a slight little speed bump. They can't think around it. That's not
Yeah,
urgent. That's urgent to you.
that's
I'm
right.
dealing with, the building's on fire. So just wait a minute.
I love that. Well, speaking of buildings being on fire, uh, you know, I think security and those types of issues, I think it's different, but similar when you're in a fully remote environment. So how do you guys deal with cybersecurity? What how do you do that? What's your real focus these days when it comes to cybersecurity?
We actually just hired a director of cybersecurity. So my solution is, that's gonna wait till he gets here. It's his problem. No, I'm just kidding. Um, Cyber,
Spoken like a true military man.
yeah, that's the problem for tomorrow, Evan. Um, no, we cybersecurity has always kind of like been a big thing to me. So like I had a slight panic attack when I got there, and I realized on day two that there was no two-factor authentication. So I flipped that switch real quick. Um, we're nice
Nice.
here, and my leadership was all on board, and I loved it. They listened to me that quickly, and I
Easy
love the
win.
company because they trust me, and
Yeah,
they know that they hired me for a reason, and they let me do my job.
that's
Uh,
great.
so when I come in and say, "Hey, this is a problem," they go, "Yeah, you're right." I'm like, "Cool, thanks." I don't
That's
have to
great.
prove why it's a problem.
Yeah.
Um, so we actually, I stepped in though in the middle of like 2 or 3 different security audits. So that gave me the perfect leeway to say, "Hey, here's some problems that I wasn't aware of, and you should let me help fix these."
Nice.
So yeah, all kinds of changes and everything. Obviously, I don't want to broadcast our
Of
vulnerabilities
course
and
not. No, no. Yeah,
shortcomings, but
yeah.
it's a very strong push right now in the company that we want to improve, especially because as you grow as big as you are and you make the waves that HighLevel has been making, nobody gets that big without making enemies and without stepping on toes. And I'm not saying that it's like malicious or deliberate, but
Yeah,
hackers exist, and half the time they just are doing it for fun.
that's right.
So,
No, and that it's funny because that's always been the challenge when you're the bigger you get, the bigger the target you are, and so that's just a reality. I mean, the small business, I think, unfortunately, they get kind of lulled into this false sense of security, like, oh, I'm small, it doesn't matter. Okay, you're small,
yeah.
so you're not a target like the large company is. But so many of these threats are automated. They're just out there looking for it. Oh, that's a vulnerability. Doesn't matter how big you are. They don't know how big you are when they come across an IP address and this particular vulnerability, or they're just shooting out a bajillion of these emails to everything in under the sun, and you happen to click on it. Wasn't targeted. So it's
Yeah.
just pure luck, or it's the randomness of the universe. So I think that's a really interesting one for so many small businesses because, well, it was fine yesterday. Okay. But you're still standing in a lightning storm, with a lightning rod. It is only a matter of time before it strikes. And we all are. Everybody is. So
Yeah.
nobody's immune to it. Everybody's gets hit. And I think one of the nice things about nice things, I guess it is a nice thing. The positive part of ransomware when everybody went and was kind of hibernating at home, or quarantined, and ransomware became such a prevalent thing and so prevalent in the mainstream media. It finally gave light to a very serious issue that it has been going on for a long time, and I think it finally made people realize how important cybersecurity was. So everybody in the organization, from the highest to the lowest level, was like, yeah, it's a real issue. I mean, like, cybersecurity, it's not something we can just ignore completely. Where I think prior to the pandemic, I think it was easy to just kind of ignore cybersecurity. It's like, we're fine. We've got antivirus. We got a firewall, right? So that'll take
Yeah.
care of it, right? I mean, don't click on links and emails, and we should be fine.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, maybe. Um, but I think, I think that was really positive. And I think everybody is really starting to take it much more seriously, which is what it needs, because, it's not like cybersecurity is, you can never be cyber secure. That's not a thing, unless you unplug it and, bury it in the ground. It's hackable. So
Yeah. Everything is hackable. The question is just how hard is it, and do they have the determination to get through? And you can, cross your fingers and hold your breath and hope for good luck, and maybe they just won't get you. But I had a drill instructor that used to say shit in one hand, wish in the other, and see which one fills up first. You know, it's not a viable cybersecurity plan to just hope.
yeah, 100%. And I think the reality is that when it comes to that kind of the cybersecurity and hoping, and even making yourself, as even if you had Fort Knox level security, you've got phenomenal security. I think at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. It matters that you've done it, but the reality is it's about detecting when that happens, when somebody gets through, because they're going to get through. Somebody's going to click on a link because the emails have gotten really great. The way
Mhm.
that you put in your credentials and they're immediately logged in. You're putting them in at, Google or Microsoft or whatever the account is in real time. There's not even a person on the other end doing it. They're automatically just doing it. And it's beautiful in terms of how far they've come and what they, and it looks perfect. So there you're going to get, people are going to get fooled. They're going to get, they're going to get access to accounts. They're going to get access to computers. It's only a matter of when and how quickly can that be detected. And I think that's the future of cybersecurity. It's not a matter of being impenetrable, because we know that's not the case. They'll always find a way in. It's a matter of detecting it and then being able to respond fast enough. I mean, you look at it, most of these ransomware groups, they used to be in networks for months, some of them as much as 6 months before they did anything, just collecting and traversing the network, getting the data and getting ready to, and nobody noticed a thing. How did you not? It's easy not to notice because there's looking through the logs, it's crazy. If you're not using AI to look through that stuff and see that, wait a sec, Jane lives in Chicago and she logged in Chicago, and then 15 minutes later she logged in Lithuania. Like nobody's gonna catch that. That's not a thing that just like pops up like, oh hey, right?
Yeah.
But it can, and that's where we need to be. Like as a nation as a whole, I think we're under attack, and people are coming for our money and our way of, which is our way of life. And what? I found that was the thing. It took me almost 15 years, maybe longer, to realize that was the thing I loved when I got like what I loved in the Army was the mission. I loved being in the 82nd, where you had this anywhere in the world, wheels up within 2 hours, boom, we had this mission. It was cool. It was just great. We had this mission. We were doing good stuff. And then got out of the military, and when I started Cyberlinks, it took me like 15 years to realize the thing that I loved was we were doing that same thing. I translated this mission. Now we're defending U.S. businesses, it's the same mission. And so I get really excited that we're, even for the other IT managers, you're defending your company and everybody in it's their way of life. And, these enemies, foreign and domestic, they're coming after us. They want our money. They want to take us. And so for me, I'm like, fucking giddy up, let's go. I was like, that's great.
Yeah. It's like
I
being
love
back
it.
in uniform just without getting yelled at and hazed and being forced to run 6 miles at 5 a.m.
Right? Only upside. Yeah,
Yeah.
none of the bad stuff. So
Yeah.
no, it's super exciting. Okay. So, speaking of military and leadership, and because I think those are really important. I think there's a lot of people coming up in IT, especially the younger people who don't go into the military. And I think when we were younger and we went into the military, we had an entirely different experience than what an 18, 20, 24-year-old, civilian who's never had that. They've never seen that sort of military leadership. They've never had that sort of structure and discipline. So, how do you go about that? Are you are you seeing in the younger kind of generation, more need for stronger leadership and guidance, or is it just a different style and it works?
Yeah, it's I think the best way that I can put it is that, when you and I were in uniform, it was not about me, it was not about you, it was not about us, it was about the whole. It was a collectivist mentality. And like, I don't know if they said it in the Army, but they always told us, hey, the mission comes before the Marine, you know. And I think there's still, to a certain extent, depending on the mission, there is some prevalence about that. If there's a whole outage, if the whole company's website is down or something like that, then okay, yeah, maybe forget your dinner date and work on the server or whatever, there are some urgent problems that the mission will still come before the Marine in that situation in a civilian environment. For the most part, though, there is no concept of bigger than me. It's me, people who have never been in the military or not had that team mentality, that deep team mentality, don't understand. I wouldn't say don't understand, but no, don't necessarily come with that same like drive to just get the job done, no matter what. I mean, to improvise, adapt, and overcome. It's first speed bump. Well, what do I do now? Well, what would you do if I was not here? You know, or it's just like, okay, well, I hit my 8 hours. I'm punching out. I'm like, cool, thanks. And that's one of my things is I've never asked anybody to work overtime unless there's like a special job, like, hey, we've got to clean out the storage room. So like, let's all be here on Saturday. And I show up first. I've got pizza and kolaches and donuts and beer, and I leave last. But otherwise, I never ask anybody to work overtime because I don't want to, the job is not meant to intrude on their personal life. Your life comes before this job. But at the same time, if you see the rest of us here working our asses off and you leave at 8, right at your 8 hour mark, I'm gonna notice that. I'm gonna realize that. So then don't later be like, hey, well, can I get a raise? Like, well, you want more money when on your hourly, but you're not willing to work a little bit of OT to help the rest of the team when we're all trying to get this thing done. Like, you know, so it's kind of a balance, but for me, when considering those things, but like, yeah, it's there's no, sorry, I'm kind of all over the place. There's
No,
no
good topic.
grasp on what's bigger than myself.
Yeah.
It's a certain level of, and I don't necessarily, it's a certain level of selfishness, but not even necessarily in a rude way. It's just more of an ignorant selfishness. It's, I don't want to get too maybe judgmental. I'm not a parent, so I'm not going to sit here and criticize people's parenting skills, but some people are just raised like you're the most special and precious in the world, and you're the smartest and you're the best, and mommy loves you, and like that's cool. I'm glad your kid's got the confidence of a king, but you got to be a teamwork. You got to be a team player to a certain extent. I'm not saying I'm asking anybody to sacrifice their entire personal life and work 13 hours a day for 6 days a week or anything stupid like that. But you and I will do the job that's required of us, and we'll get it done, because sometimes it takes somebody working a little extra, working a little bit harder, carrying a little bit more, and it's just what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the military did such a good job of one. I mean, you've got a real mission, even when you're just whatever cleaning weapons, or you go into the whatever. There's a real mission, even when you're at peace. That your existence is for a purpose, and having that mission, I think it brings people together, and I think part of the challenge of leadership in the civilian world is finding a way to bring that mission to people, to their civilian workforce in a way that makes sense for them as a person, and who has a personal life, and we all do, like we're people, and then also is a part of this organization. This organization exists to do something, but at the same time, the mission of that organization is also to provide a living for the people who are a part of it. So it's
Yeah.
a symbiotic relationship.
Mhm.
And I think that the challenge is lost on a lot of people to really express and motivate people to the mission of that. Like, yeah, it's about you, because the organization doesn't exist without the people in it. Then it's nothing, right? It's just something on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And what we're doing, unless we're manufacturing cocaine and distributing it, we're probably doing something pretty good. I mean, we're probably doing something pretty good for people, right? Even if it's something just like business to business, you're helping other businesses
Mhm.
provide a way of living for those people, right? I mean, you're helping your fellow. Nobody's an island. Nobody does this alone. There's no self-made person. Doesn't exist. So I think it's challenging to communicate that team spirit, if you will, that central unifying mission, to get people excited about it. And I think it transfers over from a lot of veterans, like that you spent so much time like, yep, yep, yep. And even as I got out, I was like, yep. And I had even though I didn't like consciously realize the mission, and like that's why I loved it. It took me, I'm a smart guy. It took me 15 years to figure it out. But I think for that's the challenge of leadership, isn't it? To communicate that and create that environment where people are like, yeah, I'm gonna spend 8 hours a day here. I'm gonna spend, probably half of my waking hours at this place. And it shouldn't be some shitty grind where I'm just doing it so I can do the other things that I like doing. You've got to focus on the mission, and then it's enjoyable. There's purpose, though. There's got to be a why to it, right?
Yeah. And, like I always wanted with my previous team, my goal was always to make it. I knew that I don't want to, it was not the most fun environment to work in.
Fair enough.
But at least on my team, everybody knew that my team, we had fun. I had a really good boss. My director was fantastic. He and I are still good friends. But my techs that all worked for me, I had a half dozen technicians, and I went out of my way to make sure that everybody there, I couldn't make the whole company awesome, but I made the day-to-day awesome. I say that with all absolute arrogance, because if I had fun, we had fun. I would often get overly caffeinated in order to do so, but it's a good thing. I sat 12 paces from the coffee machine. I wanted my technicians to have fun there, because if there's low morale, there's going to be low productivity, and I wanted them to be productive. And I didn't want a lot of the other negativity around in all of the other departments and otherwise the rest of the company to affect them. So my job was, I was the bullet sponge. I was the platoon sergeant that buffered them all from the higher levelers who came in to interfere. And if somebody gave them shit, they tell me, no, you don't respond to it, you let me know, and I deal with it. And I have no problem stepping on toes if it means protecting my team. And I will go down with the ship to protect my team, because they're the guys on the front end doing all of the work. I was doing the management bullshit with expense reports and all that crap, and going to meetings and taking blame. And they were the ones that are actually doing it. They were configuring laptops and fixing stuff and putting together the Pelican cases to prepare to go to the next station to set up the next airport. And like I said before, I never asked any of them to work overtime, but if they refused to all the time, I may have noticed it. But I would also make sure that they knew, if somebody messages you or contacts you after hours, you ignore it by all means. That is your personal life. This company doesn't pay you enough to sacrifice your personal life. There's nothing this company is doing that is worth more than your personal life. And, they have a great product and people love them, and that's cool. And I'm happy for the company for that. But your personal life comes first. You work 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, roughly, plus or minus, so that you can afford the other 16 hours a day, whether it be whatever you're doing in the evening, playing video games, going on dates, movies, going out partying with your friends, getting blackout, pissed drunk, arrested in downtown Dallas, and then, paying your bail, whatever. It's your money. You spend those 8 hours that day earning the money to live the rest of your life. And that's what it's about. Your life comes first. The company comes second. It's wildly unpopular, but I don't encourage being loyal to a company. You're loyal to yourself. You use the company respectfully. You're not taking advantage of it. You're not embezzling. You're not committing fraud. But the only reason why you work there is because you need a paycheck. If you didn't need a paycheck, you wouldn't be working anywhere. Nobody works for free because they want to, because it's fun, unless they're passionate. But, so you work, you do your job, that's fine. You do it well, I'll protect you, and you go live your life. And if somebody calls your personal cell phone number somehow, you do a bad accent, tell them wrong number, whatever, and you let me know and I'll take care of it, because company has no right to interfere with your personal life. A lot of my higher ups didn't like that mentality, but that's fine. Show me where in the contract it says that the company owns me 24/7. Just because I had somebody tell me, oh, well, your salary now, you need to handle this stupid ass problem Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Dude, I'm fucking hungover. Like, leave me alone. It's not my fault that this bozo forgot her login for the security cameras to pull footage from something that happened 2 weeks ago. Why does it have to wait till Sunday morning at 7 a.m.? Go fuck yourself.
Yep.
You don't have a right to my personal life just because I'm salary, especially in a contract that says representative of a 40-hour work week.
Yep.
More than 40 hours. Now, I would do 45 to 50 hours a week but that's because I also was invested. I really valued the company and I wanted to keep moving up.
That's right.
But my hourly technicians who were already getting paid shit, who had bachelor's and master's degrees in computer science and made $2 an hour more than customer support.
Ouch.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, you're not going to interrupt their personal lives, and I'll stand toe to toe with anybody from the CEO on down who's going to say, "Well, why didn't they take my call?" Because fuck you. That's why. That's my passion, is protecting my people from being overrun by the company. I'm loyal to my team and then the company, and they're loyal to me because I'm loyal to them. But by no means are any of us loyal to the company to a point that it's going to be detrimental to any of us.
Yeah. I love that.
That's my policy.
There you go. Well, and I think that that inspires good, I think that really helps, build the morale of the team, where when your troops know that you've got their back, and that, that's what leadership is, right? I mean, it's not having their back so they can slack off and not do their jobs. It's have their back because they're doing their job. And when somebody tries to, it's having those strong boundaries. I'm seeing like, no, that's there's a line, and nope.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
love it.
When I left the company, 2 of them submitted their resignation. They didn't want to be there without me. And the rest of them were all asking me, "Hey, is there room on your team at the new place?"
Right.
Because they didn't want to be there anymore. And I still talk to them all the time. And they said morale plummeted. None of them have fun. There was no longer this loud, animated, profanity-ridden voice that was, sounding out over the rest of the company in the cubicle den. Just like, it was not uncommon for me to just, "No, what the fuck is that?" Just out of nowhere, just some stupid ass email. And they loved it, because it's just, they loved watching me overreact to ridiculous emails, because, we get those in IT anyways. But, I gained 20 pounds working there because I was just always taking everybody out to lunch and, trying to make it as positive of a work environment for them as possible. And we just laugh and tell jokes all the time. And I'm turning 38 on Friday. I'm having a big ass birthday party, and my entire team, past and present, are all coming to my birthday party.
That's great.
We're just gonna sit in the backyard in little stupid children's inflatable swimming pools and get pissed drunk and have a great time. And because my team loves me and I love my team, and I genuinely love my team. I still go back and visit them. I'm probably not allowed on the premises anymore, but whatever.
Spoken like a true Marine, like even to the bitter end there. That's great.
I installed that security system, so fuck them. I can get past it if I have to.
That's right. I love it. Evan, this has been great. I know we've gone a little bit over time. I have absolutely enjoyed every moment of this. But before we go, can you tell everybody where they can find out more about you and HighLevel?
For me, I practice what I like to call controlled narcissism. So I have my own website, evanjost.com. Honestly, I just put it up just to host my resume while I was job searching. But I think it links to some of my socials. But otherwise, you can also find me on LinkedIn. There's a few Evan Josts. Most of them are ugly. So am I, but I'm the white one that's ugly. And then HighLevel, you can find out more about them at gohighlevel.com. So if you're interested, they offer a 2-week trial period. Matt, you should check it out.
We're gonna check it out.
2-week
You're
trial
gonna have to hook
period.
me up with somebody. Let me yeah, we'll definitely check it out, because I
I'll be
think
honest, we don't even have salespeople, man, because the platform sells itself.
so. If I migrating from HubSpot to go, and now, not to turn this into a sales meeting for HighLevel, but if anybody's still listening, here you go. So migrating from HubSpot to HighLevel, is there a process? Is there, how do we go about that? I mean, we just have to rebuild everything in HighLevel?
That's actually a really good question, incredibly valid. And what I'll tell you is that I actually have absolutely no fucking clue. I have no.
I deal with IT, Matt. Remember, not sales.
Yeah, no, I don't interface with the platform myself. I'll have our own internal team members that'll reach out like, "Hey, Evan, I have a problem with that." I'm like, "You got to talk to those guys. They built it." So I actually only really get to manage our internal systems, Zoom, Slack, Google, shit like that, So I have no actual knowledge of that. Now, I bet both my boys that you're not the first person who's wanted to transition from one platform to another.
Did you just say you'd bet both my boys?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Please continue.
I'm sure you're not the first person who's transitioned from one sales platform to us. So I'm willing to bet they've got all kinds of means of moving you guys all over from one straight to the other, to include like your domain hosting for your website and everything. So
Yeah.
they've thought of everything. I tell you what.
All right. I'm gonna check it out and I will keep you posted. All right, Evan, this has been a blast. And I guess
Yeah, it's been fun, man. I thank you for having me.
thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.